Okay, so this is our lesson that should have taken place in class tomorrow morning on mardi, the 1st of April. So Tuesday, the 1st of April. But as you know, I have to go to this conference on learning how to rate speaking abilities for different levels of language students. So we're going to do this by a video, and then you're welcome to correspond with me over email or set up a time to meet with me in my office after 5 o'clock, or we can even schedule a Wimba session if you guys would like one of those. And if you'll forgive me, my voice, I'm about to lose it from the conference, and I also have a little cold, so if I sound a bit strange, that would be why. So we're going to start off now with les vêtements et les couleurs. Okay? And I'm going to use more English in this lesson than I normally would because we're not having that face-to-face time, and since this normally isn't an online course, I just want to make sure that you guys have what you need for the lessons. So this is basically vocabulary here. Now, certainly for les vêtements. And so, vous pouvez voir des exemplaires des vêtements ici, ok? Un t-shirt, un sweatshirt, un pantalon, un jean, un blouson, ok? Ce sont tous des vêtements, d'accord? Okay, so we can kind of, if we look at these pages in our book, which you should have your book out while you're looking at this lesson, and you can stop and start the video so that you can make sure that you get everything down that you need to, and this will also be posted on Blazeview, this PowerPoint. Okay, so if you look at the question here, here's the functionality of these words, you know. So, qu'est-ce que vous portez? Qu'est-ce que vous portez en cours? Qu'est-ce que vous portez en cours? Now I can remember when I was a college student, we got up and we did our hair and our makeup, and everybody got really not dressed up, but we made sure we were all made up. And I have taught at places, not VSU, but at different other places where students wore pajamas to class even. So I think that's a cultural thing. You know, what do you wear to class? What do you wear to school? Even when you're in high school, it makes a statement. Your clothing makes a statement. So that's an important question. Qu'est-ce que vous portez en cours? I'd like for you to take a minute to think about how you would answer that. And this verb, porter, okay, this is conjugated, but it's an ER verb. So it's Porter, okay? And so we're just conjugating it like we would conjugate any other ER verb. Je porte would be your answer, okay? So if I pose the question to you, qu'est-ce que vous portez en cours? You would start off your answer with je porte. Maybe try and find some things down here that you might wear. Ok. Donc, pour la plupart, à VSU, je vois des étudiants qui portent un jean ou un t-shirt, peut-être une jupe, une robe. Il ne fait pas très froid ici, donc un blouson, un pull, c'est pas vraiment nécessaire. Des bas et tout ça, c'est pas vraiment nécessaire. Ici, des baskets, normalement, je vois ça. Des tennis, je vois ça aussi. Ici, here's what we call les talons. Les talons. And it's spelled just like the word talon in English, which I think is a great visualization because you have the high heel and the talon. So let's go through, and if you go into your ebook on the website, you can practice the pronunciation, and I really encourage you to do that because we don't have that face-to-face time this week. So we're going to practice the pronunciation. I'll say it for you, and then I would like for you also to practice it with the ebook as well, so that we're really getting some good practice in there. Okay, so I'm going to start off each sentence with je porte. And that is nice. It's a nice way to remember our vocabulary words if you started out with a simple part that gives it just a little bit of context, and it's always the same, but it just gives us something to hang it onto in our minds. Okay? So, for example, we're going to start here. Je porte un chemisier. So, répétez après moi. Je porte un chemisier. Je porte un pull. Je porte une robe. Je porte une jupe. Je porte un manteau. Je porte une veste. And here the difference is this is like an overcoat, whereas this is more like a blazer or something. Je porte un blouson. And if we go down here, here's some really, these three right here are really interesting. Because if you think about it in English, we say, I'm wearing jeans, plural, or I'm wearing pants, or shorts, plural. But in French, they're singular, so be sure to note that, okay? So, je porte un jean. Okay? Je porte un pantalon. Je porte un short. Okay, and then here these make a little bit more sense to us as speakers of English. Je porte une chemise. Je porte un sweatshirt. Je porte un t-shirt. Okay, so down here we have two different things. This is sort of the slang and this is the full term. So we can call these, we can say je porte des tenues, or if we want to use the full name, we can say je porte des chaussures de tennis. And then here we would say je porte des chaussettes. C'est féminin. Okay, and here we have a little bit of difference between tights or leggings and pantyhose, okay? So for tights or leggings, we would say des collants. Je porte des collants. And this can also be used, and this word des bas can also be used for underwear sometimes. Des bas. Je porte des bas. And as I mentioned to you here, we have three more kinds of chaussures here. Des talons here, and then here is des baskets. So des talons, des baskets. And here we would just say des chaussures. And that's a difficult word. It's a good one to practice. Chaussette, chaussure. And so we see a little bit more here in detail with the people here on page 102. Here we have Jean-Pierre. Voilà Jean-Pierre. Okay. And the question now is, qu'est-ce qu'il porte? So what is he wearing? Qu'est-ce qu'il porte? Okay. So il porte un costume. Un costume. Ça veut dire a suit, right? Une chemise. A shirt, une cravate, une montre, a watch, so une cravate, une montre, une ceinture, des chaussettes, et des chaussures. And you'll notice here that they call this un complet. That's another word. C'est un synonyme pour un costume. And sometimes one is used to distinguish a man's suit and one is used to distinguish a woman's suit. Okay, so voilà Marie-Claire. Qu'est-ce qu'elle porte? So we're asking the same question. What is she wearing? Elle porte un chapeau. So répétez après moi. Elle porte un chapeau, un foulard, un imperméable. And this is kind of difficult to see what that is from the drawing here, but it's a raincoat. Un imperméable. And if we look at that, it kind of looks like impermeable, or it can't, water wouldn't be able to permeate it. So that's one way to remember that. Okay? Des gants et des bottes. Et puis, elle porte aussi des lunettes. Des lunettes. So you can have, you guys have seen me, I wear glasses in class. Glasses to see, we would call those des lunettes. But if we were going to talk about glasses for sun, we would say, like sunglasses, we would say des lunettes de soleil. And so if you remember our chapitre préliminaire, when we talked about the different weathers and the word for sun was soleil, so if we just said des lunettes de soleil, that would indicate sunglasses. So they do the exact same thing in French. So maybe take a moment now and see, as you're watching this, try and see if you can answer this question. So before, our question was, what do you wear to class? So now the question is, qu'est-ce que vous portez aujourd'hui? What are you wearing today or right now? And see if you can jot down a couple of things either from this slide or this slide that you are wearing right now. Qu'est-ce que vous portez aujourd'hui? And start off your sentence with je porte. Okay, so a lot of times when we talk about clothing, we're going to talk about colors as well. It kind of goes together. And the first thing we want to talk about is how do we inquire about colors? And so the question would be, de quelle couleur est? So of what color is? De quelle couleur est? And then you would say the thing that you're asking about. In this case, the pair of pants that Jean-Pierre has. Okay? And then the person would say, il est gris. And remember that le pantalon is singular. It's not plural like it is in English. So, il est gris. C'est un pantalon gris. Okay? Again, here's another example. De quelle couleur est sa chemise? Of what color is her shirt? Elle est bleue. C'est une chemise bleue. De quelle couleur sont ses chaussures? Elles sont noires. Ce sont des chaussures noires. And what do we note about these different words here? If we glance down here, the masculine form of noir, for example, it's N-O-I-R. If we look here, though, we have N-O-I-R-E-S. And if we check back with chaussure, oh la la, it's feminine and plural. And doesn't that make sense with the way that we've learned to make adjectives agree with other types of adjectives? So again, les adjectifs de couleur. Oui? Okay, so they're adjectives, and for the most part, they will agree in gender and in number. Okay? And sometimes they change a little bit. And one thing that I often encourage students to do is to go through this list and make a list of the ones that change up a little bit, like blanc et blanche. There are a few of them, violet, violette. And the ones that are just the same, the ones that follow the normal rules, and then the ones that don't change at all. So let's do some pronunciation here, okay? And I'm going to start with the masculine and then go to the feminine. Blanc. Blanche. So that one changes spelling just a little bit. Gris. Grise. So this one is totally normal. It just adds an E and then an S. However, it follows that rule for the masculine singular, for the masculine plural, because it already has the S on the end of it. You wouldn't double the S. vert, verte, violet, violette. So this one would fall into the category of blanc et blanche. It changes a little bit. Bleu, bleu. Noir, noir. Marron, marron. And you can see here that this one is invariable. That one does not change. Jaune, jaune. Orange, orange. Rose, rose. Rouge, rouge. Beige, beige. Now, unlike marron, which is just invariable, it never changes masculine, feminine, singular, plural. Ones like rose, for example, or rouge, the reason why we don't see the difference between the masculine and the feminine is that the masculine already has an E. So that would be one reason why we're not seeing that difference here, but we would still add an S if they were plural, whereas marron stays invariable. Okay, so what I'd like for you to do is take a couple of minutes now to work through this activity here, okay? And this is on pages 103 and 104, okay? On va utiliser les couleurs. Qu'est-ce qu'ils portent? On va décrire les vêtements des personnes que vous connaissez, okay? So, par exemple, les modèles. Mon professeur de français ne porte jamais de jean. And we'll learn about jamais means never, okay? Je porte souvent, often, un t-shirt, mais je porte rarement un chapeau. So the first question that I'm going to ask you to email me to ensure that you've watched the video, there will be two from this video. The first one will be the response to one of these, okay? So finish up one of these sentences, and you can don't use what they've used here. You can don't have to worry about saying often, rarely, or never, because we'll cover that in the next lesson. But just say les étudiants de mon cours de français portent. So you have to conjugate the verb porter, and then finish it off with what people usually wear in your class, or what does an actor or an actrice de Hollywood wear normally, or what does your best friend normally wear. Or what do you normally wear? Moi, je porte normalement une robe noire. That's what I would say. Je porte une robe noire. So that's your first question that you'll need to answer to count for our participation in this PowerPoint. There will be another one. So take a moment to do that. Okay, now, this is one that we might be able to practice next week a little bit because this is a partner activity, but it is good if you do have time to do it with a partner. It would be great if you could do it with a partner and just practice it a little bit, and then you can sort of do a check in class with us, okay? So as we see here, the words marron and orange are invariable, okay? So it doesn't matter whether they are singular, plural, masculine, or feminine. Just a reminder. And the reason why is because that these are actual objects, like an orange, for example, that those colors are named after. So that's why they're invariable. Okay, so see if you can answer these questions here. And I'm going to suggest that you pause the video here and really try and answer these questions, because remember, you do have a quiz on the 10th of April, okay? And we're going to be in the lab working on our composition number 2 on the 8th of April. So we really need to try and work with this vocabulary as we're going through this video so that you know how to use it. So if you need to pause the video, go ahead and do that now. And if you feel like you would like to send me your answers so that I can check over them, I'd be more than happy to do so. Okay, so I'm assuming you've paused the video. I'm going to go on here to our next, and again, this, you can use these.
Chapitre 4. Coup d'envoi.
Prise de contact. Les vêtements. Écoutez et répétez. Qu'est-ce que vous portez en cours?
Je porte un chemisier, un pull.
So I'm going to pause it there, but if you have the ebook version, which you all should have, then you can also listen and practice the vocabulary there, and I encourage you to do that because you'll be responsible for it. Okay, and plus those people don't have a cold, so they don't sound funny. Okay. Excusez-moi. And this is truly my favorite lesson to teach. As you can see on your syllabus, we are talking about clothing and colors, which we just did. This is actually my favorite lesson to teach, and I'm so sad that we don't get to do it together. But we're going to talk about demonstrative adjectives. And I'm going to go ahead and do the lesson sort of in reverse, okay? So that since we're doing it online here. And if we look at our book on pages 104 through 107, and if we think about what these words mean, les adjectifs démonstratifs. Okay, so again, with adjectives we know that they have to agree in gender and number. So we know whatever we're doing here, we're going to have to worry about agreement, right, of the noun. And then if we think about, what does this word mean, démonstratif? What does it look like? It looks like demonstrative, okay? And so really what all these words mean right here is this or that, okay? This or that. And which one of those you choose depends on your context. It's going to be the same word. It just depends on the context, okay? So, ce copain organise une fête could mean this friend is organizing a party or that friend is organizing a party. It depends on which one makes more sense in the context, okay? When we get into the plural, then we're going to be talking about those. So, it's demonstrating this one, that one, those, okay? So, if you look at the structure of these sentences, okay? For example, here, we have ce, and then copain. And we know we always have to use something in front of a noun. And remember, copain means friend, okay? So we know that copain is masculine and singular. And, excusez-moi, we could use le, so the friend is organizing a party. But what if we really wanted to be specific about this friend is organizing a party? Then, we really want to demonstrate that. Then we would use one of these adjectifs démonstratifs. And since it's masculine and singular, we would use ce copain. And we don't need to use another article. That would be like saying this the friend. So that works the same in French as it does in English. In certain cases, I can't imagine one that you would need to use in French 1001, but in certain cases, just like in English, you might want to say these 3 dogs are very nice. You might want to use it with a number, but I can't imagine in French 1001 where you would want to do that, but it could be used with a number. Okay, if we look here, glace, that means ice cream, and it's feminine and singular. So the way we say this or that when the thing that we're demonstrating is feminine and singular is to say cette. set. So we have ce and set. And then finally, for the pluriel, whether it's masculine or feminine, who cares? We have c'est. So here, cadeau means gifts. It's plural. We're just going to say c'est cadeau. I prefer these gifts or those gifts. And again, whether or not you're using these or those depends on the context of your conversation. Now, the one little wrinkle that we have here is when you have a noun that is masculine singular, only masculine singular, and that starts with a vowel, we're going to use this modified form, CET. And that's really just to give us the pronunciation linguistically to go into the next word. So this example here, if you remember that H's are silent, cet hôpital, so you can hear that T carrying me into the next word. We don't have to worry about it here because we've already got it. We've got that double T. And here we've got an S. It's just with the masculine singular that we need to worry about it. Okay? So, what I've given you here is a lot of different démonstrations for the question, qu'est-ce que vous préférez? So what do you prefer? Les démonstrations. Okay, and so here's some examples of people using them. Regarde, ce matin, j'ai acheté 7 calculatrices et 6 livres. So when we use these adjectives, we've taken it from the calculator and the books to this calculator and these books or those books. Okay, so we're making it even more specific. Okay, so it's important to note when we would want to use those is when we're really trying to demonstrate a certain object, this or those or these. Combien coûte, how much is, cette montre, s'il vous plaît. And that's perfect. She's pointing to a specific watch, this watch. Okay? So, si on peut imaginer, c'est presque ton anniversaire et tous vos amis ont envie de découvrir vos préférences. So the question is, qu'est-ce que vous préférez? What do you prefer? And so I'll pose the question to you, and what I would like for you to do is say, je préfère, and then you would say, ce restaurant-ci or ce restaurant-là. And I'm giving you two choices. And you'll notice here that the background is blue. Okay, so I'm trying to give you a hint that restaurant is masculine, singular. Okay, so we're going to use ce. And then you'll also notice these little si and la with the accent there. And that really just means this one here or that one there. So this hyphen si, hyphen la, that's an option. You don't always have to use those. It's just an option if you're trying to distinguish between two things that are close together maybe, which works in this case, okay? So the question is, qu'est-ce que vous préférez? What do you prefer? Okay? So qu'est-ce que vous préférez? Ce restaurant-ci ou ce restaurant-là? And so you would say, je préfère. And if it were me, I would say, ce restaurant-là. C'est très classique. C'est le bout de bar à Paris. But it depends on your preferences. Maybe you like a sports bar better. So you would say, je préfère ce restaurant-ci. OK, une autre question. Voilà des gâteaux. OK, qu'est-ce que vous préférez? Ce gâteau-ci ou ce gâteau-là? Moi, je préfère ce gâteau-ci. Moi, j'aime bien le chocolat. And if you need to pause it in between so that you can have more time to either write out the question and the answer, that's fine too. Et voilà des chiens. Moi, j'aime bien les chiens. OK? Qu'est-ce que vous préférez? Ce chien-ci ou ce chien-là? Moi, j'aime bien les Georgia Bulldogs, mais ici, j'aime bien que ce chien-là, il sourit. Il sourit, oui. Ok, et des jeux. Qu'est-ce que vous préférez? Ce jeu-ci ou ce jeu-là? Moi, je préfère ce jeu-ci. Ça, c'est très logique, oui. Mais qu'est-ce que vous préférez? Et voilà des sandwichs. Qu'est-ce que vous préférez? Ce sandwich-ci ou ce sandwich-là? C'est bon pour la santé, oui. This one's healthier, right? Oui. Et voilà le bacon, oui. Okay, et attention ici. So here you can see we've still got the blue background. So it's still masculine, but we're starting off, this noun is masculine, but we're starting off with a vowel. So that was that exception where we need to add that T to get that pronunciation in there, okay? So cet instrument-ci ou cet instrument-là. Qu'est-ce que vous préférez? Cet instrument-ci ou cet instrument-là? Moi, je préfère cet instrument-là. I used to play flute, so. Mais moi, j'aime bien aussi la musique rock. Okay, so notez bien, on change. Our background has changed. So you can notice from our description before, right? Now we're talking about things that are feminine. Voiture is feminine. So in order to say this or that, or when we get into the plural, those, then that's going to be a different set. But in order to say this or that, then we're going to use set. Okay? So, qu'est-ce que vous préférez? Cette voiture-ci ou cette voiture-là? And so you would answer again with je préfère cette voiture, either ci or là. Ici, c'est plus moderne. Là, c'est plus classique. Et voilà les télévisions. Qu'est-ce que vous préférez? Cette télévision-ci ou cette télévision-là? Et voilà les cuisines. Les cuisines. Qu'est-ce que vous préférez? Cette cuisine-ci, la cuisine française, ou cette cuisine-là, la cuisine italienne? Moi, je préfère la cuisine italienne. Don't tell anybody. Ok, et voilà ici des montres. Des montres. Ok, qu'est-ce que vous préférez? Cette montre-ci ou cette montre-là? Moi, je préfère cette montre-ci. C'est plus classique. Okay, so now our background is back to blue. But if we look at this, what do we notice here? It's plural, right? And remember we talked about it doesn't matter singular or plural, we're going to use C. Okay? So, qu'est-ce que vous préférez? Ces acteurs-ci ou ces acteurs-là? Moi, j'aime bien, je préfère ces acteurs-là. Oui, moi, j'aime bien Gossip Girl, mais la plupart des étudiants préfèrent ces acteurs-ci. Ok, des bonbons, qu'est-ce que vous préférez? Ces bonbons-ci ou ces bonbons-là? Oui, moi, je préfère ces bonbons-ci. J'aime les fruits. Mais la plupart des personnes, ils préfèrent ces bonbons-là pour les chocolats. Et ici, ces cadeaux-ci, presents, ces cadeaux-ci ou ces cadeaux-là? Qu'est-ce que vous préférez? Ici, ils sont plus grands, oui. Et bon, voilà des chaussures. Qu'est-ce que vous préférez? Ces chaussures-ci, des talons, oui, ou ces chaussures-là, des tennis? Moi, je préfère ces chaussures-ci. Mais je suis vieille, je ne peux pas les porter. Et puis, ces fleurs, ok? Qu'est-ce que vous préférez? Ces fleurs-ci ou ces fleurs-là? Okay, so let's go through some sentences here. Now that we've practiced it, we've seen the rule, we've practiced it some. Okay, so we look here and we know that we want to use, the title is telling us we want to use these demonstrative adjectives, this, that, those, okay? So the first thing we need to do is identify that, okay? And on a test, you would be told that. But, in normal conversation, it would come up when you would want to demonstrate something. So, but here we're working as if we were on a test. So we look at this word, restaurant. Restaurant is masculin singulier. So do you remember what adjectif démonstratif we would use there? I prefer this restaurant, or I prefer that restaurant. Je préfère ce restaurant. Now we're going to change just a little bit. Okay, je préfère, and then we have télévision, and that's feminine singular. Okay, so does anybody remember how we would use that in the feminine? This or that télévision. Cette télévision. Je préfère blank cadeau, masculin pluriel. And so if you think back about what we said about the pluriel, it never changes. It's just c'est. Je préfère blank fleur, féminin pluriel. So it's still pluriel. So what will we use? C'est. So in the plural, it doesn't change. Now, attention ici, this is our exception. Je préfère blank acteur. So acteur is masculin singulier. So we would think ce, right? Just like restaurant. But what do we see right here? A vowel. So we have to really think about that with our masculine singulars and go back, okay? So we can't use ce because of that vowel. We have to use set, that shortened form, to get that T sound in there. So here's the slide that you saw at the first part. You have ce, set, and c'est, and then this shortened form of set here. And again, as I explained before, we can add si and la comme option pour préciser, here, there, near, or far, if you're trying to distinguish between two. Okay, so take a moment here and try and complete these phrases with the correct form of the demonstrative adjective. And I would have you remember that a lot of times H's are silent, okay? So they act like vowels. So I'm going to assume that you're going to pause the video here. So I'll just start back up in just a second. Okay, so for numéro 1, we know that is masculin, singulier, okay? So normally we would think ce, but it has that silent H, so we're going to say set. Numéro 2, vous aimez mieux blank foulard-ci ou blank foulard-là? So foulard, if we look that up in our vocabulary, is masculine singular, so we're going to use ce. And it's going to be the same thing here. What we're talking about is two different scarves. It's the same word. We're just talking about, do you like this one here or that one there? So that's a good example of how we use si and la. Okay, if we think back to when we learned about time a little bit, and the word année is feminine, okay, and we could have just said here, cette année, on va fêter l'anniversaire de mariage. This year, we are going to celebrate the marriage anniversary of our parents. But sometimes you can use these for emphasis. You know, you can just, this year, this 1 year, we're going to celebrate this anniversary. So sometimes it's used just for emphasis. But we're going to use set because année is feminine. And you'll notice that I didn't have to worry about changing it or anything like that because I already have that T sound there. Here, acteur is masculine, singular, but it starts with a vowel. So what will we use? Tu aimes cet acteur. Numéro 5. Vous achetez, and if we look up in our vocabulary, cette chemise. C'est féminin singulier. Okay, same thing here. If we look up cravate, cette cravate va être géniale. And if we didn't know, this one we didn't really have any clues as to the gender of the noun. But if we were sort of trying to really figure it out, we could look at this adjective here and see that it was feminine. Same thing here. This is the masculine form of an adjective describing group. So we know that group is masculine and it's obviously singular, so we're going to use ce. Ce groupe est sportif. This or that group is sportif. So that's a very, les adjectifs démonstratifs are very straightforward. There's just that one difference with the masculine singular nouns. And so that's something that you'll have to look out for when you are actually trying to form the sentences. You'll have to pay close attention to the vowels in the sentences, okay? So if we go into our book, and I'm actually not going to be able to show you part of the movie today. So if we go back into our book, it's taking just a second here. Opened up on one. Okay, voilà. Yeah, I already did. I had it opened up on one page. L'adjectif démonstratif. Okay. So a lot of these you can do. You can complete on your own. You can send them to me. Okay. I will self-check if you'd like to as well. Okay. And so this was one that we had in the PowerPoint there. So if we scroll down here, you have your lesson here on page 106. Okay, so the second question that I would like for you to answer here is number 2. In part 11, number 2. Fill in the blanks here and send me the whole sentence, okay? So you're going to fill in the blanks with ce, cet, or c'est as appropriate and send me the whole sentence. So you have the first thing that you were supposed to send me from earlier in the presentation and this one. And you can send them both in one email, but this just lets me know who has watched the video and who hasn't, okay? And I would really encourage you to go through these and practice them some and make sure that you really understand what's going on, because we will have a quiz on the 10th, so just a heads up there that you will be held responsible for this information. Now, another thing I wanted to point out to you is that on, and I mentioned it a little bit before, was on the 8th, so not tomorrow, not this coming Tuesday, but the next Tuesday, on the 8th of April, we're going to meet in the lab, just like it says on your syllabus, okay? And that's where we're going to do our work on our Composition 2 rough draft, okay? And so you can find the rough draft and the final draft instructions here, okay, and the rubric that I used to grade them. So just be prepared to go to the lab and to work on that, and that's what we're going to start our compositions then. We won't have finished watching all 3 of the movies yet, but we will have gotten enough into it where you can start writing on it a little bit, and so that by your final draft you'll have a more full description of what you liked and what you didn't like about the movies. Okay, so just be sure to keep up with your syllabus, look at your homework, and then consider this our class for this Tuesday, and I'll post another video as our class for this Thursday. And so I need those answers by email. I asked you 2 questions during the video. I need those answers by email by this coming Sunday at midnight, okay? Just so I know that you've gone through the video and you've looked at the lesson, and you don't have any questions. If you have questions, please do email me, okay? But just so I know that we can go ahead and move forward with our syllabus.